Back again with another tier list today, and this time we're looking at iconic rap albums from the 2000s. If you are entertained by this video, I'm sure you would also like the other tier list that I did based on rap albums, and that was from 2010's rap albums. So if you enjoy this one, go click that one too. You'll enjoy that one just as much, I'm sure. Today we're looking at 40 albums from the 2000s in the hip-hop genre, and we're going to rank them tier list style. I'm going to apologize in case there's some that I've missed or some that I haven't heard before that didn't quite make it onto here. You know, based on my age, I wasn't around when these albums were coming out, listening to music regularly because I was like a kid. So, of course, I'm not going to have been able to include everything. But there were some that I have also heard that I just didn't really have a huge amount to say about. But let's hope that I've included some of the most iconic, some of the most exciting rap albums of the 2000s here. Some outliers, some underrated ones, that kind of stuff that I like to always throw in as well. Make sure you click the link of the tier list so you can make it yourself. Send it to me over on Twitter, Not Real Music, at Not Real Music over on there. Not Real Music on Instagram as well, if you want to send it me over on there too. Either or, would love to see your lists, love to see your thoughts on my list, and as always, check out my Patreon, because if you support me over on there, you will get to be a person included in these videos. You can request them, you can be part of the Discord server, that kind of stuff. If you want to see more videos like this, you can be a part of telling me what to do. So let's see more people on there. Let's just get on with it then. If you're a hip-hop head, you will probably be very familiar with many of these albums. If you're a bit of the part of the older generation, older than me, I'm sure you lived through these albums, so that perspective would be very interesting to see in the comments. The tiers are as follows. As usual on this channel, I keep them always consistent and the same with every tier list. All-timer, these are the best of the best. Excellent, not too far away from the best of the best, but they're not quite there, but they're still like favorites of mine that I listen to regularly. Very good, decent to good, meh. That's kind of where we're talking about albums I don't really care too much about. Bad and awful. But if you're in the decent to good and above, you're winning, because that obviously means I like it. So Below the Heavens, good start to this tier list because we're going straight into excellent. Love Below the Heavens, love what Blu and Exile were doing on here. I just think it's one of the most free-spirited, positive albums of the 2000s. I think Blu was really, really impressive as a rapper. He was pretty young when this came out, actually. And yeah, I'm just on board with what they were doing on this thing. I just think it's aged so beautifully. I like their other work that they've done together as well. There was an album a few years back, Miles, which I think was a pretty good album too. Not as good as this, but I do think it's an album that could easily be considered as good. Personally, wouldn't say it for myself, but yeah, I just think Blu is a very, very good rapper, and this is the peak of his powers, really. Cannibal Ox, I think this is quite a beloved hip-hop album, particularly with the hip-hop nerds. Like, there's going to be a few underground rap albums, backpacker rap albums on this list. Don't you worry if you're that kind of hip-hop fan. I've got to say, not a lot of it really speaks to me that much in terms of how other people view it. It doesn't resonate with me as much as others. I mean, it's still in the decent to good tier, but I'm not quite as on board with this as other people, I wouldn't say. I think a lot of people would put this in all-timer, to be honest with you. LP's production is cool as hell. Again, a definitive time for that era of rap music. LP kind of bubbling in the underground, doing some really, really influential stuff. Just wasn't an album that I absolutely love. But let's go with The Carter 3, which is easily considered the most iconic of that series. But honestly, I think Carter 1 and Carter 2 might rival it. I think Carter 1, and especially Carter 2, are better. I just included this one because I didn't want to include too many albums, and I know that this is the one that people rave about the most. So yeah, I do think it's pretty good, but not as good as I think it is in comparison to some of his other work, I just think it's got some iconic moments for sure, but yeah, I would prefer Carter 1 and 2 personally. Very good Cloud Dead. I think this actually only came on streaming pretty recently, which was nice to see. A pretty big moment for, again, the underground rap nerds. Really cool album, this. So unique, so fresh and different to anything else really of its time. I'd put it in very good. I'd put it above Lil Wayne, to be honest with you, which is a bit mad. there will be some hot takes in this video, guys. There's always going to be some. I don't think as much as some of my other videos, but I don't know. I think there'll be a few takes here that you're going to be absolutely kicking yourself over, because you'll be like, what are you talking about? Oh, you can't not like Common, though. Common's got to be very good, maybe even close to excellent on some days. Tracks like Go are fantastic. Kanye on that track is so great. The production is just so smooth, you know, coming from that era of like, you know, D'Angelo and Erykah Badu. You know, Common was kind of part of that group, really. And yeah, you can hear the soul coming through. There's nothing better when an artist in the rap game, you know, brings the soul in such a nice way with the rap. You know, if you get it right, you get albums as good as this. It's so good. A bit of a hot take, maybe this one here, but Jay Dilla's Donuts is going in very good. I think this album showcased things to come for Dilla, and sadly we never heard it. I think we never got the peak of his brilliance, because I think this is a really influential album. And I think it has some fantastic beats on it. But I don't think every beat is as impressive as the next one. I just think we never quite got the brilliance of what he was going to do, which is really sad. But I get why this is so iconic. I get it. I think a lot of people, again, would have this all-timer. But for me, like I say, some of the beats are fine. Some of the beats are okay, but then you've got it like sandwiched with some insanely fantastic ones that are just like, wow. So yeah, it's just one of those albums for me. But yeah, I think the best was yet to come, and we just never saw it. Boy in the Corner, bit of a UK one here for you. Had to include some of these ones, you know. I mean, I'm from the UK myself, but I do think they're pivotal for the 2000s and shaping music to come. And Dizzy Rascals, Boy in the Corner, Jesus Christ, what an album this is. Super award-winning album, critically acclaimed album. Like, this was before he even had the mainstream hits that he started to get later on. But yeah, this is really good stuff. An album that just brings so much fire and just excitement to the table. Every beat is just so powerful and banging. It knocks you off your feet. Yeah, it's really good stuff. We've got quite the run of very goods, actually, but yeah, we're going to keep them going with I will put that there, actually. Dialects from Filthy Tongues, really underrated. I mean, maybe overlooked is a better word, because I think a lot of people that know how good this album is know how good it is, but the influence that it had is honestly immeasurable, because I think it really set the tone for a lot of 2010 stuff. Like, I think a lot of 2010 stuff that came through in the experimental field that decided to push boundaries might not have been able to do it as much if it weren't for an artist like Dialect, because they were really, really weird and off-kilter and creative. And yeah, on some days I maybe even could justify this in excellent, to be honest with you, but I think for now I'm staying very good. Yeah, really cool stuff. And like I say, some of the stuff that you're hearing in the 2010s, you know, I think couldn't be with us without this. I'm going to go decent to good for Game Theory by The Roots. Had to include at least one Roots album, as I do really like The Roots. And this is a good album, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I don't think it's quite as star-studded as some of their other work. I don't think it's got quite as many standout moments as their other work for me, but I still like it. This is going to be where the first few hot takes start chiming in, you know, because I just don't really get it with 50 Cent. Look, don't get me wrong, In the Club, when that comes on, I'm dancing. That's a great track. And honestly, I wouldn't have minded if he just made more songs like that. But there were some tracks on this album that I just didn't really get with. And I've seen some takes about this album being like this incredible piece of work that's like just some of the best hip hop of all time. I just don't get it. Like, I just don't get where people are coming from with those kinds of takes. And I just wasn't feeling that many of the tracks. Like, I don't know. I just don't really find there to be much exciting about this album. Yeah, it's kind of meh for me, honestly. So that's probably one of the first hot takes. But even more of a hot take than that, I think, might be having Supreme Clientele in the same tier and also being meh. Look, there's an issue with hip hop, and this is still going on today. Some people seem to think that this is a streaming era issue, which has definitely changed how people are making albums, particularly in hip hop. You see like 20 plus tracks on albums, and it's just so unnecessary. It just doesn't need to be as long as it is. And yes, streaming has made that a thing, and is continuing to make it worse. But this was always a thing in hip hop, and Supreme Clientele is no exception to that rule. 21 tracks, so many interludes, so many weak moments where he's talking about like who he wants to sleep with, and he lists a bunch of like female rappers and stuff, and it's just like so tacky. The Stroke of Death track has like one of the worst beats I've ever heard. I'm not even making an exaggeration there. That beat is atrocious, awful beat on that track. And I just don't really find a lot of Ghostface Killah's rapping on this album that's really engaging. Like, I don't really find a lot of the topics he's rapping about to be that interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess an extended hot take would be I've never really loved the individual solo works from the Wu-Tang Clan, because Enter the Chambers is one of the best rap albums of all time. I will stand by that. I absolutely love that album. It's fantastic. I think a lot of people would also agree. It's amazing, but I don't think any of their solo work even comes close to that album. Like, not even close. The closest might be Raekwon's Cuban Links. But yeah, other than that, I don't really get a lot out of their solo stuff. I think the flair came from them bouncing off of each other. And I just don't really find that much enjoyment out of this album, to be honest with you. But we've got some positives on the way now, because we're going to put Graduation in excellent. I see a lot of takes about this aging badly, and obviously Drunken Hot Girls is terrible. Like, I'm not going to defend that song. But one bad song on an album does not make the album. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. The rest of this album is so good. Like, the production is aged well for me. I think the hooks are incredible. Kanye's just flip-flopping between this like serious rapper that can really lay down some fantastic rapping over these also really catchy melodic beats that just stick with you and will live on forever. I just love the fact that he was able to kind of sell out in a way that you could call it a sellout album and still keep the quality. You know, Can't Tell Me Nothing, Flashing Lights, freaking I Wonder, which is one of his best songs, I would say too. I like Homecoming. You know, I like Homecoming. Yeah, just so many bangers, Barry Bonds, I like too. People don't like Barry Bonds. I like Barry Bonds. Like, so many bangers. Champion, Good Morning. The hits are just living on for days. Stronger is good too, and that might be one of the weaker tracks on it, to be honest with you. I just love this album. One album that I can just stick on if I'm in a pretty meh mood, had a rough day at work. Just stick this on, my mood's lifted. Just a really, really bright, poppy hip-hop album that just brings so much to the table and kills it on almost every front. Yeah, I just think it's great. Hell Hath No Fury, one of the best rap albums of the 2000s for sure. Clips were incredible, and love what they were doing on this album. Mr. Me Too, Jesus Christ, what a track that is. And you know what, we may as well get in the other Clips album and just do it both at the same time, because there's two Clips albums on here. One of them is a mixtape, and yeah, that is an all-timer. That mixtape is an all-timer. Look, let me tell you, man, whenever I talk to Pusha T fans, or even Clips fans, I mean, I think if you're a Clips fan, you're going to be a Pusha T fan just by association, but I do know a lot of people younger, around my age, who, again, weren't around in the 2000s. That's why it's nice to hear different perspectives, because if you were living through this era, you might have a different perspective to me. But people my age and younger love Pusha T because of Daytona, his most recent album too. Like, that's the kind of era they know him for. And when you talk to them and ask them, have you ever heard, like, this Clips mixtape? They always say no. They don't know. We Got It for Cheap Volume 2. One of the best mixtapes of all time. It's that era where a lot of rappers were putting out mixtapes And they basically kind of just use the same beat of another rapper's song and put their own interpretation of it onto the song. Always found that a little bit hit and miss, but there's so many tracks on this album that does that, and they kill it. I mean, Hate It or Love It by The Game and 50 Cent is reinterpreted on this mixtape. It's fantastic. Like, the run of tracks at the start is just so punchy, and bangers after bangers after bangers. Oh, wow. So many good tracks. The Monopoly as well later on the album. Yeah, this is one of the best mixtapes of all time. It's one of the highest rated for me on this whole list. Absolutely love it. Let's just go with Jay-Z next. I'm going to put very good for The Blueprint, and then excellent for the Black Album, which I will stand by with my take here and say that the Black Album is better. Just think the bangers are a bit more harder on that one. The Blueprint's really good, by the way. I mean, you know, I'm not going to sit here and act like it's not a really good album. I think you could interchange these two and it would make sense. Jay-Z was just in his prime, some of his best ever work. Had to include this on this list. And yeah, just love the Black Album. Some of these Kanye albums have actually split up a little bit, so I probably should have just done all of them at the same time. But we will go College Dropout, very good, close to excellent, I would say, honestly. And then, oh no, that's gone in the wrong place. Late Registration, all-timer. Look, I've said it before on this channel, that is my favourite Kanye West album. It's one that brings such a heavy conversation every single time you bring up Kanye West's albums, because people are so passionate about what their favourite album of his is. It's crazy. The conversations just go on for days. People just constantly have totally different lists for the rankings. I think it kind of goes to show how brilliant a lot of his work has been, despite the fact that the type of person we've seen him be has not been good at all. But yeah, really goes to show the type of passion people have for his music, because so many different rankings and different orders, and they kind of all make sense to some degree, really. You could interchange a lot of his top 5 albums and it does really work. But yeah, I just love Late Registration. I think the production is just killer. I think the rapping is on point on that thing. I think some of the tracks on the College Dropout have aged a bit weak, so that's why it lands in very good for me, actually. But nothing is aged badly on Late Registration at all. Similar to Graduation, where there's a few tracks that sound a little dated with College Dropout and Graduation, whereas Late Registration, I don't think there's a single thing that's aged at all. It sounds fantastic. He even got Adam Levine on there and it sounds amazing too. Wow. A$AP Rock, I'm going to go very good. I think this is the peak of his powers, really. I think, you know, his 2016 album was good too, The Impossible Kid, I think it's called. That was a good album. But other than that, I think his shtick of rapping so many wordy dictionary words that just sound like he's pulled them from nowhere. Like, yeah, it does seem a bit much sometimes, but I do think, you know, Labor Days was very good. So, yeah. Let's go with Lil B. Not Lil B. Lil B. Lil Brother. Lil Brother, not Lil B. Lil B is a totally different artist. I'm going to go all-timer, but actually I'm going to switch it. So it's going to have, yeah, clips in front of it. Yeah, just love this album. So funny, so on the nose. The concept is brilliant too. One of those albums that I feel like when you explain it to people, they are like, oh, I really want to hear this. But the fact that it kind of touches on race in the way that it does, and yeah, it's just very clever, and the rapping is great on here too. I love what they were doing on here, man. Phonte is super underrated. You never really see him mentioned in like greatest rappers of all time list. Big Pooh as well. But yeah, they're great on this album, man. Again, the peak of their powers, really, because this is their best work. Their album from a few years back I thought was really good too. But yeah, you can't really deny that this is great. Probably the worst album cover on this list. Food and Liquor by Lupe Fiasco. Probably not his best work. I think some of his 2010s output's actually been very good and very thoughtful and conceptual. But you can't really deny some of the tracks on this, man. They've aged so well. They're so fun. He was so uplifting at that time, a bit more positive, a bit more carefree. I liked what he was doing on this. It just doesn't make for like an amazing musical experience. But the album cover, that's got to be in the awful tier, man. That's a terrible album cover. It just looks so terrible. One of the best on this whole list, Madvillainy. Oh, do I like it more than Late Registration? I don't know if I do. Oh, that's a tough one. They're close. I can't decide which one I like more. That could be interchangeable, really. Oh, that is tough. But regardless, Madvillainy, come on, man. We know what they bloody did for music. Just so good. Some of the rhyme schemes that he comes through with. I know people take the mick out of MF Doom, but I think what he was doing on here was so clever. It just flows so well with the music that I tend to really don't mind some of the lines sounding a bit silly at times. I think he just rhymes so well. His vocals are great. He's super influential. Madlib's production, what could I say about that at this point? Incredible piece of work. This had a pretty high reputation going into it, Masta Ace, but I didn't really get a huge amount of it. But I do want to point out the fact that it is indecent, so I do like it. I just didn't quite love it as much as I expected to, because again, the reputation it has is really high. Although saying that, rap circles nowadays, I don't really see Masta Ace get mentioned in rap conversations. Kind of weird, but yeah, you know, cool stuff. We got to put Nujabes in here too. Yeah, both in excellent. Although really, are they all-timers? They could be. They could be all-timers, really. By the end of this tier list, I might switch them into the all-timers, but Nujabes was just so excellent. These albums are stunning. Like, the production is ridiculous. Out of this world beauty coming from this album. Yeah, just really love what he was doing here. Just some of the best, most vibrant, and like, so like, it makes you want to be better as a person listening to this music, you know. It's so weird listening to Nujabes. It just brings out that energy in you that you just want to be so much better, and so positive all the time. It's such a wonderful experience listening to him. Incredible stuff. I picked Darula over Kala because I do think Kala was probably a bit more on the like, I guess like Afro beats influence coming through on that album, whereas this one felt a bit more straight up hip hop. But what do you get for $10? Anything you want. Some really fun hooks on this thing, you know. Really good album, Marula. Galang, galangalangalanga, da-da-dee, galangalangalanga. That's a fun track. There's so many good tracks on here, you know. Not one I go back to anymore, really, but I should listen to it again because I do think it's a really good debut album. This is not a test. I'll go decent. I think it's a pretty good album. Fun one from Missy Elliott. Not heard every album of hers, by the way, so you know, if you were hoping for a different one to be on this tier list, it might be because I've actually not heard it. But I do like what Missy Elliott's bringing to the table. Some of her lyrics sometimes are pretty bad, but you know, I think the delivery, the energy has been influential. I think you wouldn't really get people like Nicki Minaj without Missy Elliott kind of opening the doors for a lot of female rappers to kind of be a bit more abrasive, be a bit more in your face in the way that she has been. She gets kind of overlooked now, doesn't really get mentioned in many conversations, but don't forget what she was bringing to the table did a lot for women in hip-hop for years to come. So, you know, gotta respect her. Just don't think her albums are ever that good, you know. It's alright, it's good, but I don't love it. Let's go with MF Doom, the highest of the decent good. I've always wanted to like this album more, and I love Rap Snitches. That track is just a legendary song. That is an all-timer song, one of the best rap songs I've ever heard. But in terms of the album, I never really fully clicked with this one, so this is a bit of a hot take to have this quite low down, but it's good. Let's pair the streets together. I think both of them kind of land in the very good. They're about similar quality, really. They've both kind of got the same issues of like aging a little weakly. Some of the hooks are pretty poor in places, but I liked the creativity that was going on, particularly on A Grand Don't Come For Free, with the concept that was really, really well executed. But it's just some of the music and some of the hooks and some of the vocals at times that I think has aged a little weak. Outkast and excellent. I'm going to put it pretty high up, actually. I think Sankonia is so bloody good. One of my favourite albums from this decade. B.O.B. Wow, what a track that is. That always sounds like it's ahead of its time. Every time I hear it, it sounds like nothing I've ever really heard in hip-hop, to be honest with you. Miss Jackson, so much fun. Yeah, some of the interludes are really funny on this album too. Like, if you want to know how to do interludes well, you've got to either listen to Late Registration or Stankonia or Lil Brother. Actually, these are the artists that get interludes in hip hop right, because they're really funny, they're really silly, and yeah, I love what they were doing on here. A bit of a basic take because it is their most popular album, I guess, or maybe Speaker Box is their most popular, I guess, in terms of sales. Actually, that one is, but maybe a bit of a basic take to say it's their best album. I just think it's one of those that's obviously their best. I think some of the beats, snapping and trapping, are really fiery and energetic. Yeah, I love the features on here too. Yeah, Stank is great. Stank's great. An album that justifies its runtime, because it's another one that hits like 20 tracks or whatever, but it is justifiable. A few other positives to come in the next actually couple here. Cunning Linguists and Q-Tip. Going to pair these two together because they're kind of the same ilk of being underrated hip-hop albums from the 2000s that have aged really well. Q-Tip is super famous as being the Tribe Called Quest rapper, of course, but his solo work on this album is fantastic. Love this album. And then Cunning Linguists are just a rap group I never see mentioned, but honestly, they've got a lot of good material for the southern rap genre, and yeah, they should be in many conversations for rap groups, but they're never mentioned. Slum Village, another one I'm going to include in a similar kind of category here too, because this is another rap album that's pretty underrated, and as time's gone on, it's kind of gotten a bit forgotten, but yeah, love this thing. Jay Dilla, by the way, all over this album, he was part of this group. If you've never listened to Slum Village, please do, because if you want to hear more Jay Dilla ilk type beats, I don't think that sentence made sense at all, but you get what I mean? It's very, very bloody good. A couple of bads to throw in here. I don't really think there was any point in bringing this into the tier list, but I realised that there wasn't many bads that I included. But Book 65, Talking Honky Blues. Jesus Christ, man. The blend of country and hip-hop was never done well. I mean, is there anything apart from like Old Town Road that sounds actually quite good? I don't think there's much. I don't want to hear it, man. I don't want to hear it. This guy's voice is so goofy. The beats are really bad. Yeah, this is terrible. And maybe one of the biggest hot takes of the day, Quasimoto. It's not worse than that, though, but Quasimoto's The Unseen. I can take Quasimoto's vocals in small doses whenever they pop up on Mad Villainy. There's not really much of it. I'm not really keen on it, but for a full album, listening to that voice, I cannot do it. I just can't do it, man. It's too much. And for a similar reason, in terms of the vocals, I guess I've got to mention Eminem next, because I get it. I get what he did. The rhyme schemes are incredible on some of these tracks, like Criminal. You know, I don't even need to list it out for you, because you probably know the rhyme schemes I'm talking about. The concepts are pretty remarkable too. Not really many other people have done what he's done. And the influence he's had is undeniable, right? But I just don't like it. I just don't enjoy listening to it. I don't enjoy listening to Kim. You know, I just don't want to hear these tracks, you know? They're just a bit ugly. They're just not really enjoyable to listen to. The goofiness in his voice at times ruins a lot of his talent. Like, I really think there is a better way to rap some of the songs that he does, you know? I mean, listen to a song like Stan. He doesn't throw in these stupid, annoying little things. He takes it a bit more seriously. And there are maybe a few tweaks to when he's kind of playing the character a little bit. He kind of throws in a bit of exaggeration for the character. I guess that's needed, but it's not constant. He's not like poking fun at the fact that he's just said something controversial and is like, haha, I said something controversial, don't you get the joke, haha. And I just find that so irritating. It's not that it offends me, because a lot of people seem to think that, oh, the younger generation don't get what Eminem did. No, I get what he's saying. It's just not very funny. It's just not tasteful. It's just not enjoyable to listen to. It's going to be the most controversial opinion on this whole list. I get it. But I just don't, I can't sit through an album like this. It just becomes irritating. And yeah, I'm just not with it, you know. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on the conversation around Eminem's the Marshall Mathers LP. Just not an Eminem fan. We don't stan him in this house. I can't really get with it. But Mos Def, The Ecstatic. Yeah, this is going in all time, you know. Ooh, I'm going there. Top 3 on this whole list. Ecstatic is amazing. Some of the beats is incredible. It's the best thing Mos Def ever did. I've talked about it in a full video before as well, so if you want to go watch that, go check it out, because I haven't mentioned it before. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. The rapping is fantastic. Yeah, absolutely love this thing. So underrated. So underrated, but yeah, brilliant. Better than Black on Both Sides, for sure. Yeah, absolutely love it. Uwama Hiroto, in the same vein, cut from the same cloth as Nujabes, and doesn't seem to get as much love as Nujabes. So if you are a Nujabes fan, and you've never done any Uwama Hiroto stuff, listen to Son of the Sun. You will like it. It's beautiful. And finally, calling this the last album now on the whole list, we're going to go Vaudeville Villain from MF Doom's sort of alter ego. It might be the lowest of the excellence, actually, sort of teetering on very good to excellent, but I have a good time with it. I think it's really good. It's better for me than Food. Again, bit of a hot take, I guess, but yeah, I love it. I love what he's doing on that thing. And yeah, that's the tier list. That is the tier list. Not too shabby, I don't think. We've got a lot of top-heavy stuff. Loads of very goods. Not really many bads, and there's not one awful. I couldn't really think of an awful album from the 2000s that I've heard in hip-hop. Perhaps there's some that I've just never listened to, and they may have slipped by me. But yeah, only 3 mehs too. This is a good list. This is a positive list. Still with a few takes that I'm sure will get people riled up. But let me know your thoughts anyway. Going to call it there. Thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Please do the tier list and send it over to me on Twitter or Instagram. Would love to see your thoughts. Comment below what I got right, what I got wrong. Would love to see what you guys think. Have a good day. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out my Patreon, and goodbye.